Hello, welcome again to FairTax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Molero.
And we are the FairTax guys. We are coming to you live and direct from Big Daddy Studios here in Gainesville. It is just after 11:30 a.m. on the day before Thanksgiving,
yes.
November the 21st.
Great.
And so if you are on live with us, there's our number up there at the top, 888-787-8023. If you'd like to call and talk to us, have something you want to ask about or a comment you'd like to make about the FairTax, we certainly would like to hear you. We do have our little program we want to go through this morning as well.
Yeah.
But,
okay. Well, since it is the day before Thanksgiving, we thought it'd be appropriate that we give thanks to a lot of the people who are supporting and promoting the FairTax across the country. I mean, there's thousands of people. Obviously, we're not going to be able to name them all, but we made a list here, and I made a list, and I sent it to Bob, and he said, oh, don't forget these, so I added it to the list. And then this morning, before we came to the studio, I thought, oh, here's a couple more we have to add.
But real quickly, before we dig into that, let's remind folks of our email address, thefairtaxguys@gmail.com. If you've got a question or comment you'd like to get to us that way, in fact, we got one we're going to get to here in just a second, a nice letter we got not long ago. And we have, of course, the FairTax Guys Facebook page. We're streaming live on the FairTax official page.
Yep.
And you can also find us on excluded.tv, which is a nice little place to go if you're finding that the content you want to see is being censored off of your major social media platforms. Excluded.tv could probably come up with something you'd really like to check out. So.
Yeah.
We advise people to check that out. And share this video. If you're seeing it live on Facebook, share it to your timeline. Let your friends see it. Help us spread the word about the FairTax, because I guarantee you, once you understand it,
you'll demand it.
Indeed.
All right, but is the show over? Oh,
no, the show is not over. That's just a nice little catch line that we like to tell folks. That it is the truth, though. It's more than just a little slogan. If you understand I have never met anybody that I've really completely explained the FairTax to, and they understand what I'm talking about, and don't have just a twisted image in their mind of what they think the FairTax is. Once they really understand what the FairTax actually is, they look at me and say, why aren't we doing that already?
Exactly.
Because it is such a good idea. Now, Randy Fisher's on board with us, as he always is, and he says, coming soon, tax-free turkey. Now, that would be a real Thanksgiving. Randy, I will be at your house, and we can have some of that tax-free turkey. No, truly, you buy the purchase of the turkey would have the FairTax in it, but you could purchase it with There's no such thing as pre-tax and after-tax funds anymore. Everything you got is pre-tax because there's no tax on it until you spend it.
That's right.
So that works pretty well.
Under the FairTax, yeah.
Again, 888-787-8023 if you'd like to talk to us here on the air. And so we want to go back and just kind of be thankful for all of the things that we have to be thankful for here relative to the FairTax. And if you're going to do that, you got to go back to the very roots of the thing and talk about Leo Lindbeck, Bob McNair, and Jack Trotter.
Yep, those were the three wealthy businessmen in Texas who the legend has it that they were meeting. They were having lunch or something, and maybe Leo, somebody, was complaining. We had a board meeting for the company I'm on, and we spent 80% of our time talking about taxes, tax consequences, legal avoidance of taxes, how to legally reduce your tax burden, and so forth. We spend so much time on that, and we spend like 20% of our time actually talking about our business and how to make our business better. There's got to be a better way. Yeah. And so the legend has it that he was challenged. Well, maybe there is a better way. Maybe we should look into it. And that's when it started.
So they had the resources to hire some of the most prestigious, most competent economists at some of the most prestigious universities in the country, gave them a blank sheet of paper and says, hey, design me from the ground up with absolutely no preconditions and no nothing. Just start with this blank piece of paper and design the very best system that we could have to fund the federal government at its current level. It has to be revenue neutral. That's the one stipulation that we're going to put on you. But bring in as much money for the federal government as the current income tax is, but do it in the best possible way. And literally, they had the entire world open to them. And what these learned economists came up with, they didn't call it the FairTax right out of the box. But what they came up with was this national retail consumption tax. And again, talking about legend has it, as they were explaining it to somebody, the guy looked at him and says, that's a fair tax.
Yep.
So that's how the name stuck. But this was designed $20 million these guys spent, Leo and Bob and Jack Trotter spent to develop the FairTax or have the FairTax developed for them by these economists out here in the prestigious universities. And so they came up with a FairTax, and that's it.
And, and the three, Lindbeck, McNair, and Trotter, they figured, well, they're going to get some version of the income tax, maybe a flat tax or something like that. And they were pleasantly surprised when the economists came back and so forth, the experts came back and said, get rid of the income tax, go to a consumption tax.
Well, Carrie Bowers is chiming in here. So it's interesting that the founders and the framers of our nation already knew 200 plus years ago what the best tax system for free people is. That is correct. The original Constitution forbade an income tax.
Yeah.
You could not do it. The framers of the Constitution knew what an income tax would do. They said, we're not going to have that here. That's why it took the 16th Amendment to actually let the federal government collect an income tax, one of the biggest mistakes ever. Oh, and hi to Mark Bates. He's on board with us. Thank you.
Yep.
And that was one of the biggest frauds ever perpetrated on the American people, was passing the 16th Amendment and letting the federal government have an income tax. But yeah, they knew. So these guys that started from scratch with a clean sheet of paper and came up with really the best system being fair, it's transparent, has the least negative impact on the economy for business, and that is what the fair tax is all about, and that's how it's there. And we're still going to be plugging on it. So our first thank you of the Thanksgiving season goes out to Leo Lindbeck, who unfortunately is no longer breathing, Bob McNair and Jack Trotter as well, who started the ball rolling.
Yep. They formed the Americans for Fair Taxation formally in 95. And Steve Hayes, who we had on this show a few weeks ago, all right, they asked him to do presentations, all right, because Steve has been involved with the idea of a consumption tax since before these folks got started. And so they formed Americans for Fair Taxation in 95. Legislation was first formally introduced to Congress in 99. And then you have to also thank Neil Bortz and John Linder.
Yeah, because without those guys really publicizing, especially Bortz when he was on the air, and he was talking about the fair tax on his syndicated radio show a lot.
That's how I learned about it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So you have this great idea, but if people don't know what it is, you really need a national platform to trumpet this thing with. That's what Neil Bortz did, and then when he and John Linder, the congressman from Georgia at the time, wrote the fair tax book. That's just, I mean, it's right over there. The original one is the white one over there.
The original one is here.
And it is so simple. It is incredibly simple. You do not have to be a Philadelphia lawyer to understand what those guys are saying. A little bit of history on how the income tax came to be, and then just point after point after point of why and how the fair tax is so much better. If you have not read that white book, get the white one first, and then get the red one, because they were coming back. This red one is refuting some of the things that the critics at the time would come out with.
Right.
And so if you want to know about the fair tax, and you can do it in very simple to understand language, you can read that thing in an hour or so. And so check that out. I'm not sure. I guess you can still get that on Amazon.
Yeah, I think so. And we were lucky enough. I'm not sure if it was Amazon or where, but we bought several of these things, used. One of them was signed by Neil Bortz.
Oh, good.
We don't give that one away.
No, I don't. Neil Bortz signed one of my hats one time, but that one has since kind of faded. But our special thanks to Neil Bortz and John Linder for, of course, John Linder was the original person who introduced the fair tax. But, Ron, you mentioned a second ago, this was first brought into Congress in 1999.
Yes.
Which means when the new Congress convenes in January, just a couple of months from now, the fair tax is an idea that is 20 years old.
In Congress, yep.
It's been in Congress for 20 years. For all 20 of those years, it has been assigned to the Ways and Means Committee and just sat there, didn't even get a hearing. They died in Congress when the session went out of business. And so it's reintroduced every year. We're going to reintroduce it again this year.
Yep.
And hopefully, eventually, if we get enough of you guys out there getting on your Congress critters, telling them, hey, at least give this thing a hearing in the Ways and Means Committee. That's
going to be the subject of a future Fair Tax Power Radio, is what we do in January when we have a new Congress and H.R. 25 is reintroduced again. We have to start over again. But that's a subject for another show.
Yes, but with Congress now, it's going to be divided. Democrats will run the House, the Republicans will run the Senate. So hopefully one of the offshoots of that is that there will be some more robust debate on some of these issues. And hopefully tax reform, which is the president has always said he wanted to do tax reform 2.0. He has yet to do tax reform 2.1, because what we got back last December, about a year ago, was not tax reform, it was tax relief, for which we are grateful.
That's right.
But they did not change the system. They just tweaked some of the parameters on the existing income tax system. If you want to get tax reform, I mean literally, fundamentally change the way the system works. That's the definition of reform, and that's what the FairTax is going to do. And hopefully, if we can get the FairTax into the national conversation about the tax reform, then we'll start getting some traction. And of course, we know that Mike Pence knows about it. He was a co-sponsor. There are some people high up in the administration that know what the FairTax is all about. And you just get too many of them and says, oh, that's just too radical a change. We can't do that. So, hey, guys, you work for us, and we want you to make that change. Got it?
And actually, I don't think that they're afraid that it's too radical. I think it'll interfere with their gravy train.
Oh, no doubt about it.
Yeah, no question.
Because we mentioned that lobbying on tax issues is one of the biggest businesses in Washington, D.C. But while we're back on let's thank the roots of where we started, I'd like to give a shout out to Greg Martin at the Leading Edge Radio Network. When we first came on with FairTax Power Radio, it was an audio-only radio show that was broadcast on the Leading Edge Radio Network, which is a streaming audio service out of Dallas, Texas.
That was 4 years ago, last month.
That was a while. So we were on that platform for a while. Then we got on to Spreaker. We've kind of, and then graduated up here to Big Daddy Guns and being on Excluded TV and being on, we have a video version of a radio show now. We still call it FairTax Power Radio. But it was thanks to the Leading Edge Radio Network that this whole thing got started off the ground and gave us our original outlet to do this weekly show dedicated to the passage of the FairTax.
Yep. And again, we've recognized this wonderful opportunity we have for doing a digital TV show. And we have to thank Tony and Sherry McKnight, who are the proprietors of Big Daddy Studios. Big Daddy has a number of businesses here. We're not going to go into that. But they created this studio, and they invited Bob and I to do a weekly show on it. We're very blessed for having this opportunity and getting it out there. And we depend on you, like Bob says, share it with everybody and share it to other media. Put a link to it on Twitter. There's some new social media sites popping up here and there because people are getting a little tired of the censorship that they're receiving on the big ones. Mm-hmm. All right? So you got these new ones popping up. And so share it on there. Yep. Yeah. Share it everywhere you can.
We're really not in the business of promoting other websites, but I've got to mention this new one. They call it Trump Town. It's for, largely for Trump supporters, and it's kind of an alternative to Facebook. A lot of them have got their accounts suspended over there at Facebook for various activities. So there's that one, so you might want to check out. And, of course, check out Excluded, XCLUDED.tv. That's all the website promotion we're going to do here. But we do, really. Thanks, heartfelt thanks to Tony and Sherry McKnight for giving us the platform here to do this digital streaming of FairTax Power Radio. And, of course, if we didn't have folks out there like Sandy Goodell and Morris Yoder and, Mark Bates and folks like that watching us every week, we'd be wasting our time. So a heartfelt thank you to all of the folks who tune in to FairTax Power Radio on a regular basis, who share the videos with your family and friends, who are out there, on the grassroots ground level helping get the Congress critters to finally move there. There's a lot of inertia there to get it to move. But we do appreciate everyone who listens to FairTax Power Radio, watches the digital version here, listens to the audio-only podcasts that go up a little bit later. And, of course, thanks to folks who want to call and talk to us. 888-787-8023. There's the number across the top of the screen. 787-8023, area 888, if you'd like to talk to the FairTax guys. Thank you, Tony and Sherry, for putting us on the air here in your Big Daddy studios.
Yep, we truly appreciate it. And to all our viewers and listeners, thanks very much. Well, next we have to recognize the sponsors and co-sponsors of H.R. 25 in the House, and right now it's S-18 in the Senate. Now in January, everything starts all over again. They reintroduce. It'll still be H.R. 25 in the House. We don't know what it'll be in the Senate. But we've got the primary sponsors for H.R. 25, Rob Woodall. Rob Woodall was the chief of staff for John Linder. Okay, when John Linder was, as Bob mentioned, the primary sponsor of the FairTax legislation when he was in Congress. And when he retired from Congress, his chief of staff, Rob Woodall, won election to that district and became the primary sponsor. So he has been for the last, I think, three cycles. And in the Senate, we've got like a primary sponsor, Jerry Moran and David Perdue. So thank you to the primary sponsors and our active co-sponsors, Ted Yoho, my congressman here in District 3, Steve King of Iowa, and I mentioned Rob Woodall, and Jim Bridenstine, who used to be in Congress. He was a very strong FairTax supporter. So thanks for those people that not only co-sponsor, but actively promote it.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are some who are co-sponsors kind of in name only. They put their name on the bill, and they're not active supporters of the FairTax. Yeah, I'll vote for it if it comes up, but they're really not going to go out and push for it like Congressman Yoho does. We've talked to him a couple of times here on FairTax Power Radio. Thank you so much for being not just a co-sponsor, but an ardent, real supporter of the FairTax, and hopefully we can have a nice long list by this time next year.
Yeah.
We can have a nice long list of Congress critters who are not just co-sponsors, but are actually, like Congressman Yoho, up there really pushing the FairTax. Of course, he's just one of 435, so he's kind of limited on what one person can do, but we do appreciate everybody's effort that does that.
Yep, that's good.
Also,
maybe we'll get your congressman to sign up.
We are working on him. We have worked on him on Daniel Webster. He is really.
He says nice things about the FairTax.
Yes, a lot of them will say nice things about it, but of course the ones that say it needs more research, they don't know anything about it. But they will say, oh, yeah, that's a wonderful idea, but how come you don't co-sponsor it? Well, I just don't do that.
Then you get the weasel words.
So we'll be working on Congressman Webster, hopefully. We'll get him on board one of these days. But, of course, our thanks go out to those who are doing it, and our thanks go out to the volunteers on the grassroots who are pushing their Congress critters all around the country to get on board with the FairTax.
Okay.
And
we need to move down the list here.
Yeah, I want to back up just a second here. We were talking about the frequent viewers that come from the FairTax. We want to thank also those who leave us notes on our Facebook page and who write us nice notes and even the hate mail too. That's kind of fun to play with at thefairtaxguys@gmail.com. And I was checking that email address just before we went on the air, and I found something from a man named Ted Davis. Says, I appreciate your podcasts. I started listening some months ago, most of the current shows, and working back through the archives. I have a suggestion for you. Draining the swamp. That phrase has an intense appeal these days. Individuals are looking for something that they can do beyond just supporting the president, a way to personally fight back. Now, I know this is an odd angle, but let's just look at the tax code as the swampiest thing in Washington, D.C. Ted, you have hit it right on the head, no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
So if you are a supporter of the FairTax, Ted notes that you are helping drain the swamp from Congress. You are disarming big government by eliminating the Internal Revenue Service. Does that idea make sense? It makes sense to me, Ted. Thank you for writing to us.
He's absolutely right. And we get some great emails. We get some ideas for programs, for episodes of FairTax Power Radio. So, please join us. thefairtaxguys@gmail.com. Send us an email. You got a comment, you got a suggestion, you got complaint. Fine, send it to us, and we can take it.
Now, Ted notes that the number one topic of lobbying and influence peddling in Congress, as you point out with our searches on Congress.gov, is lobbyists and special interests trying to buy favorable tax treatment through the tax code. And he mentioned Congress.gov. That's something else that we looked at just before coming on the air. And I'll tab over there. As of this moment, if you go to Congress.gov, you put the phrase Internal Revenue Code in quotes, so it searches on that string of three words together. You get back now 1,648 hits. That's how the Congress critters are trying to mess with the tax code. And this is right at the very top of I've got this thing arranged, by introduction date, newest to oldest. And this was introduced on the 15th, like 6 days ago, by Congressman Kyle in Arizona. Senate Bill 3638, called a bill to amend the Internal Revenue Code of 1986 to reduce the rate of tax on estates, gifts, and generation skipping transfers. I got an idea. There's a bill out there already. It's called S-18 there in the Senate. It reduces the rates on taxes on gifts, estates, and generation skipping transfers to zero. So, Senator Kyle, if you really want to reduce the rates on those things, we need to get you behind S-18 because the FairTax will do that. Again, the FairTax, for those of you who are maybe tuning in for the first time and hearing about it for the first time, it is not an income tax. It replaces the income tax. It is a retail consumption tax. You pay it at the cash register. Since you're no longer taxed on your income, there is no more withholding from your paycheck, no more withholding from your retirement distribution, no more withholding if you win the lottery, like we talked about a couple of weeks ago. You get the full gross amount of what you earn, and you are only taxed when you spend it. So the rate of taxes, the state tax, gift tax, stuff like that, are, you know, pieces of the income tax.
Yeah.
So if you
think
want
about it, what would your paycheck or your retirement check look like without federal withholding? Think about it.
So, Senator Kyle, if you want to reduce the rate of tax on a state's gifts and generation skipping transfers, I suggest you just do that a really good job. Reduce that rate to zero. Get rid of the income tax entirely. So if you get a gift or you get an inheritance, then you receive it in its entirety, and you're not taxed on it until you spend it.
Yeah, that's right.
That works.
You know, and one thing about all these proposals, now, first off, not all of these are going to become law, but some of them will. And every time somebody gets a carve-out from the income tax and legally reduces their tax burden, the rest of us have to make up for it. Because the government, either that or the government goes into greater debt, neither one of which is good. Okay?
All right.
So, you know, we need to X out this system.
I knew this was going to happen. We have a longer list of folks to think that we've got time to get everybody in on. So let's get on this. One, I want to make sure that we don't leave out is Marilyn Rickert from FairTax Nation, because she was the one that was responsible last February for inviting the FairTax guys up to CPAC. Now, you talk about an amazing experience. See, it was kind of cold up there. And they want $30 a day to park, but other than that, CPAC is a wonderful place to go. And so we thank Marilyn Rickert for inviting the FairTax guys up to CPAC.
Because we got to interview actual candidates for Congress.
Yeah, I got to talk to Gary
Kelly
Johnson.
Ward,
I got to talk to Kelly Ward.
Sharon Angle.
To Sharon Angle. We talked to several
Governor
other,
Johnson.
Yeah, and some folks whose names you probably wouldn't recognize.
And I remember Governor Johnson's handler there, he kept saying, hey, we got to get going. And you and he were having such a great conversation. I didn't want it to stop. And his guy, you know, his handler, oh, we have to get going, you know, and I kind of ignored him. Let him go, let him go.
I remember I lost my voice one of those days.
Yeah, you got laryngitis.
So hopefully we can go back to CPAC. But thank you very much, Marilyn Rickert. And we have to thank Mark Gupton, who was the former director here in Florida.
Yep.
He was the driving force behind a Senate memorial, or I guess it was the entire House and legislature in Florida passed it.
Yes.
It was a kind of a non-binding resolution thing, but it puts the state of Florida on record as saying, we, the people of the state of Florida, urged the federal government to adopt the fair tax. That was a big thing. Mark was the driving force behind that. Thank you, Mr. Gupton.
Yep. And he spent a lot of time working on that, driving back and forth from where he lives near Jacksonville to Tallahassee, sometimes a couple times a week. One of the comments, what happened here? We disappeared.
Oh, I don't know. I'm still good.
Oh, okay. Well, something happened to me. But
Carrie
Bowers made the comment here online that the income tax is the lifeblood of the swamp creatures.
It is. He's also saying under the gift and estate taxes, when the recent big lottery winner passes their estate to their heirs, it's taxed again for any amount over $11 million. So that's double taxation with the income tax. So you got some kind of gaming video over there.
I got totally kicked off of the FairTax official Facebook page.
What happened to your computer?
I don't know what happened, unless maybe I accidentally clicked something. Oh, look, there we are.
All right.
Anyways,
there we go.
Jeez.
That's working. So,
Yep.
So again, we're running short on time here to thank everybody. Got to make sure that we mention Jade Wally.
Yep, the webinar. First off, the FairTax webinar was conducted every month for about 10 years by two guys out of Orlando, Larry Walters and Mark Benary. 10 years they did this almost every single month, all right? They've kind of retired from that for various reasons, and we're now doing it quarterly. It's available, even though we're doing it here in Florida, it's available to everybody. It's on the internet, so anybody can join in. So the next one will be December 20th, and Jade Wally, who's an accountant with a big group out in Colorado, has agreed to do it quarterly because he's really busy, can't do it monthly. And so thanks to Mark Benary, Larry Walters, who did this for so long, and thanks for Jade Wally, who's picked up the ball and run with it for our quarterly webinars. It's great. Another way to learn about the fair tax.
Of course, all of the board members of the national group, all the board members and the volunteers at the state level, the key word there is volunteer. Nobody here gets paid.
Yeah.
We just realized the FairTax is good for the country, and we're going to do whatever we can to do it to make this work. So and Ron, I thank you for helping me out on this thing all these years.
Well, I was glad to be invited. You know, the FairTax Power Radio is Bob's brainchild. When he got the opportunity with Leading Edge Radio Network to talk, do a podcast once a week or whatever. Yeah, it was once a week. Mm-hmm. And he called me up, and he emailed me. He said, I got this opportunity. He said, would you like to join me in this? Because I think two people talking about it. And this is the way he put it. He said, it would be much better than one person sitting there bloviating about it. And that's the term he used. And, of course, I said, okay, I don't know anything about radio except calling in, and talking to my favorite talk show host. But, yeah, you just point me in the right direction, and I'm there. So
all right. And
what does an old chemistry teacher know about radio?
An old chemistry teacher and truck driver, about the same as a computer programmer and whatever. But included in the list of board members of AFFT Install, we certainly got to call out Randy Fisher. He has been on with us. In fact, he's on with us right now. Hello, Randy. And mentioning he just put up a link in the comment section here of this video to this Florida SM-118.
Okay. Yeah.
Oh, you got your computer back. So
yes,
now
it came back
working
off of the gaming site or whatever it was.
I wonder how you got over there, though.
I have no idea.
That makes no sense whatsoever. But and as you always do near the end of every broadcast, you want to talk about the FairTax logo store, and our kudos to Rudy Trimmel, who runs that thing.
Yep, Rudy Trimmel is one of our board members here in Florida, and he is responsible for making sure that the FairTax logo store works, along with the people who actually run the store. It is a physical location in DeLand, Florida, and the Stams. Now, senior moment, I forgot. Eddie and Carol Stam, they run the thing, and they picked up the mantle, and a section of what they do is for the FairTax, where you can get these, all right? You can get promotional materials like this little gizmo, all right? And pocket cards. These are very handy. Whenever we go to a restaurant and we sign the bill and so forth, we put a second tip in there and include that.
When you ever get a piece of spam mail, snail mail that has one of those business reply envelopes in there.
With a self-addressed stamped envelope,
you just kind of send them back a FairTax card.
And these things are very popular. The business card size, information on the one side, and the prebate schedule on the back side, which means in January we're going to have to start these over again because there'll be a new prebate schedule based on the figures from Health and Human Services, pins and pens and so forth, hats, shirts, umbrellas. There's just all kinds of things. FairTaxLogoStore.org. Make sure you go there, buy something, show your support, demonstrate your support for the FairTax, for your friends and coworkers and so forth. And that's how we get this across the finish line. That's one of the ways we can do it.
Indeed. So we got to most folks on the list. Of course, let's mention Autry Pruitt, too. He's the one that turned us on to Spreaker.
That's right. Yep, Spreaker. When we were doing just a podcast, Bob and I were trying to figure out how can we make, because I did some research on podcasts, and you got to have this website to do this, and this website to do that. And Autry said, no. Just go to Spreaker.com. It's like speaker with an R. If anybody's thinking about doing their own podcast, go to Spreaker.com. You can do an initial involvement into the podcast will cost you $40 a year. That's it. That's amazing. And it does all the work for you. And it automatically distributes it to iTunes, iHeartRadio, YouTube, and so forth. So, yeah, Autry, thanks so much. We've interviewed him. Mm-hmm. He was a very good interviewee. And Spreaker.com, of which he's a principal, it's an amazing website, along with PopFox. Mm-hmm. All right, PopFox is a great website where you can go in and weigh in on any pending legislation. And again, we'll have to start over again in January because everything will be refreshed. And what Bob already mentioned, Congress.gov. It's another great website.
Check that out. And of course, so we got to thank Thomas Jefferson for showing up on one
That's
of our
right.
things.
Yes, and we're trying to do something.
We're trying to get him back. So
we're trying to get Thomas Jefferson to visit us again. Yeah, we interviewed him a couple times, and he wasn't happy when he learned about the income tax.
No, he wasn't. Well, I'll tell you what. But, I tell you, we just about run ourselves flat out of time. Carrie's saying Happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving back to you, Carrie, and everybody else who's watching FairTax Power Radio. We sure appreciate it. We will continue on through the holiday season, but we're going to keep plugging at this until we get the FairTax passed.
Absolutely. Safe travels, everybody. Please be careful. It's supposed to be the most heavily traveled Thanksgiving in decades.
Yeah, after we go to Hogan's, you're going to Miami and I'm going home. So anyway.
Yeah, it's not going to be a pleasant trip to Miami with all the traffic.
All right. Well, happy Thanksgiving, everybody. This is going to wrap up this edition of FairTax Power Radio. I'm Bob Paxton.
And I'm Ron Malero.
The FairTax guys reminding you once again that the FairTax is America's big solution. And once you understand it,
you will demand it.
Oh, these income tax forms are way too complicated. There's got to be a better way. Who are you?
we're the FairTax guys.
We've got a big solution for you.
What's that?
It's the FairTax. Completely eliminates the federal income tax system as we know it. No more withholding, no more payroll taxes, no more tax returns ever, no more IRS. All gone. And I guarantee you, once you understand it,
You'll demand it.
Yeah.